Alright, first, I want to start with wishing all of you a happy new year, a new month, and a new week. Isn't today a really perfect day? It's the first day of everything. Anyways, I hope this year brings you lots and lots of joy and happy moments. May you win every 50-50, get some insane relics, and many more. I hope this year be a memorable one. So in this good day, I want to finally close the chapter of Ruan Mei by discussing this one last question. Should I go for Ruan Mei or save for Sparkle? With these few days after her release, we now see a lot of new use cases of Ruan Mei, which we can't really get in the pre-release discussions. And through this, we also got some good info on Sparkle's kit and mostly how she will perform. So we can finally have this discussion on which to prioritize or choose, if you can get only one. Which is kinda odd as we still have like 2 whole patches to save, so we probably can get both. But anyways, as always, these are just my personal thoughts on these characters, and different people may have different opinions, and I respect that. This is not to show that one character is bad and another is good. This is just a simple discussion to understand these 2 characters a bit more. So with the disclaimer out of the way, I'm Sho, and these are my thoughts on 2 of the most broken supports in Honkai Star Rail. Alright, we do this the usual way. We start with a brief discussion of their kit and what they do, and then compare their goods and bads. So with that in mind, let's start off with everyone's new favorite girl, Ruan Mei. Now if you already pull her, then you guys already know how busted she is. But those who haven't, she's like a jack of all trades, but kinda good at everything. She has damage buffs through her skills and passives. She can reduce enemy resistance, which is actually so underrated, cause like when I made the analysis video, I knew how OP resistance thread is, but it actually exceeded my expectations. And like there are a lot of stuffs that you can't really confirm through calculations alone. And add to that her E1, which can literally let her entire team ignore defense when they deal damage through any of their attacks, and she literally breaks the game. But we won't take Eidolons into account when discussing value. Anyways, she can also buff speed for her entire team just by existing. You don't need any trigger or conditions, and the funny thing is, all these are just secondary. The main thing that makes her super broken is her skill giving weakness break efficiency to all her allies. And I think I've explained enough what weakness break efficiency is, so I don't think I have to explain it again. But what I'm trying to get at is that players really underestimate this buff, at least before she came out. Because like initially we only used to get this buff in simulated universe and through just 1 or 2 blessings. So like we never really paid them any mind, couldn't test it properly because the blessings are so random, and it became this kind of a useful blessing that just lets you break the enemy faster. But now that we have this buff in a character's kit, we can test new things with it. And we now see that this literally changes how we build characters. It literally gives light to all these new build ideas, like a full break effect wealth build, or just add break effect to any character as a valuable stat, like the relation between her buffs and break effect in general. Now we can see new teams using break effect stats and doing things that we never did before, like delaying the enemy so much that they literally might not take a single turn and your team gets to go again and again. And this is not just about breaking. The enemy being broken means that they take full 100% multiplier of the damage, and to that add the damage buff, the resistance shred, and it literally improves your entire team's damage by a huge margin. Also, like this new break effect meta makes break damage so much more worth it. Elemental breaks like entanglement becomes probably the best breaks in terms of damage. Like you break the enemy faster and more often, and as you hit the enemy more and more, you're stacking that entanglement damage. And even with this aspect, Ruan Mei lends a hand. She gives a flat 20% break effect boost to her allies just by existing. And also, her ultimate delays the enemy again after they recover from the initial break, so they take 2 instances of damage. Her having so much in her kit and providing all that to her entire team is what makes Ruan Mei such a valuable character to have in any account. And when you add the fact that from the day of her release, we are discovering new stuff and new ways to play her, and there will probably more awesome teams that we can play after this video goes out. So when we take all these things into account, Ruan Mei, in my opinion, doesn't just stay as a super valuable support, she becomes kind of a must pull, at least in my opinion. Now when it comes to Sparkle, she tackles another important aspect of the game, skill points. Yes, the main factor of Star Rail's combat system. Every time you press a skill or use your supports to buff your damage dealer or use heals, all depends on skill points, and Sparkle's whole kit revolves around this. Her ultimate generates 4 skill points for her team, and her skill is similar to Bronnia's skill, where she gives action forward to an ally, but instead of giving damage buff, Sparkle gives crit damage to that ally based on her own crit damage stat, kinda like Bronnia's ultimate. And she also buffs all allies damage based on how much skill points they are using. TLDR, when you look at this, she kinda feels like the propagation path in the simulated universe. Not like it buffs basic attacks, but everything else. It gives a lot of skill points and then buffs your damage based on how many skill points you are using. Also, Sparkle is like a quick burst character. Her ultimate cost is just 110 and her passives giving her 10 extra energy in her basic attacks. She can easily use her ultimate every 3 turns. Of course, a full analysis of her kit will be out after the version livestream, as I don't want to face Hoyo's wrath. But to sum it up, she's like an upgraded Bronya, where she has similar kit of a Bronya but much more added to it. Skill points is such a core part of this game that there will never be a time where you won't need skill points. And it becomes even more valuable with characters like Imbibed Lune. And with Penacony right around the corner, I bet we'll get more and more characters that will take more skill points. And suppose like Sparkle will get their value increased more and more as time passes. And not just Lune, like I said with Ruan Mei, there are endless possibilities that we never discover before we test out the character for real. And there will be more and more useful cases for Sparkle when we get to test her for like a week. And ignoring that far away stuff, even now, I can see more ways to use her than just high SP DPSs like Lune or Qingque. What about high SP supports? Like Yukong is one of the best supports for any hyper carry, but she eats up skill points like nobody's business. And also characters like Ho-Ho. The only thing that people kinda have an issue with is that she's not fully SP positive. Yeah, you can use her as an SP positive character, but if you want to maximize her kit, she becomes SP neutral. Other supports like even Bronya, these supports provide high value with the cost of high SP needs. And Sparkle just makes all these characters fully use their kit without worrying about skill points. Taking Imbibed Lune as an example, cause well, he's the only premier DPS that needs so much skill points. And when he gets those skill points, he is literally a menace when it comes to damage. And hell, we are not talking about QQ. She is too RNG, man. Back to Lune. The only reason why Jingliu is considered the best DPS in every tier list because of how easy to use she is. Her not needing a whole team built around her is what makes her the best DPS. At least right now. Cause like in terms of just damage, Lune is also up there. But since he needs a whole team built around him, giving him those skill points makes him harder to use than someone like Jingliu. But having a character that can single-handedly fix all his skill point issues like Hanya and then buffs him even more like Bronya, Lune can fully maximize his kit, and this will happen with every other DPS or teams that can perform exceptionally well than others but requires a shit ton of skill points to do so. And also, one very important thing that I forgot to mention, that unlike Bronya, Sparkle's constant buffs last till the start of the ally's next turn. That means characters that uses follow-up attack can also benefit from this. Characters like Topaz or the newly coming Dr. Ratio, who is probably going to be the best single target DPS in the game, and now you have a solid support for him that can buff not only his normal attacks but the follow-up attacks as well. And now when we sum all these things up, once again, you get like a must-pull character that everyone should have in their account. And this is the issue, that which to prioritize. Should you go for Ruan Mei or Sparkle? Which one is better? Which will be a great investment in the long run as an F2P or low spender? We can't expect to get everyone. That's why we make choices like these. So next, let's take some aspect which differentiate a bad character to a great one. So the first point is going to be versatility. Yeah, the one aspect that changes everything. The one point that everyone talks about when dealing with these kind of questions. Which character can fit into multiple teams? And I have to say that, in this aspect, both Ruan Mei and Sparkle comes at even. Of course, they have their own preference where they're great at, but with their vast kits, any team can take benefit from having one of them. Ruan Mei having her kit focused on breaking the enemy and giving team-wide damage buffs is great for dual DPS teams and DOT teams. But that is not to say that she isn't great for hyper carry teams. Trust me, she's just as strong there, if not better than other options like Bronya. Buffs like rest penetration and damage boost are some of the best source of damage increase in the game, and she being able to provide those to the entire team while being SP positive is crazy. On the other hand, Sparkle is more valuable in hyper carry teams. With her consistent buffs and action forward, she can focus on that one ally that's dealing the damage. And also, with the extra skill points that she provides, the team can use SP heavy supports like Bronya or Yukong, which are usually great for hyper carry teams. Also, I don't think I need to mention this, with her we can finally play the much anticipated mono quantum team. And with all the new crazy quantum DPSs like Shui or Qingque, even if you don't have Zila or Fu Xuan, you can use characters like Shui or Lynx, and with the extra skill points, you don't have to hold back with QQ's huge damage. Also, she's not tied to just these kind of teams alone. We talked about dual DPS team with Ruan Mei, but we can use Sparkle there as well. She might not be as insane as Ruan Mei in that, but she still can be useful. The only place where she doesn't fit that well is DOT teams. Of course, in those teams, crit damage buffs won't be as useful as something like rest penetration from Ruan Mei, but right now, DOT teams sometimes fall into the heavy SP knees category, and Sparkle can be useful there. All in all, it might seem that Ruan Mei is clearly more versatile, but when taking into account how much easier team building gets with Sparkle, I just have to put both of them on the same level. Next thing I want to talk about is offensive and defensive capabilities. Now we have discussed how much these two characters affect a team's damage. Their consistent damage buffs makes light of any opponent, but in single target damage boost, Sparkle is going to be the best support for hypercarry teams. At least through my calculations, Sparkle is going to be the best single target damage buffer in the whole game. But Ruan Mei is not that far behind either, and she's obviously better with teams that doesn't just use one damage dealer. Right now we have Jingliu and Blade, or Topaz and Doctor ratio, but eventually we will get more and more DPSs, and teams with more than one damage dealers will become the meta. Also, let's just disregard the offensive side and talk about defense for a bit. We have discussed how insane of an offensive support Ruan Mei is, but few players know that Ruan Mei is also a great defensive support as well. With her in the team, we constantly break the enemy, delaying their turn, and she herself can delay the enemy's action for another turn with her ultimate. With this, we are literally not letting our enemy play the game, and in a turn-based combat system where we have to wait for our turn to do anything, taking away that one turn from your enemy is just unfair. Like, let's say we're fighting against Kafka. She's going to dominate your character's next turn. Let's just break her, and with Ruan Mei's ultimate, she literally can get her turn for an entire cycle. And in that cycle, you can heal your allies, take defensive buffs, so that when she eventually gets that turn, it doesn't affect your team that much. Or if you have the damage, just kill her before she takes her turn, and it just ends everything. And with Ruan Mei's offensive buffs, it's possible to do so. The same can be said for any other enemy, the giant horse with the bow and arrow, or the Arumatan gatekeeper. Any boss in the game can do anything if they don't get the turn in the first place. And this is just such an insane ability to have inside a turn-based gacha game. And because of this, I just have to give this to Ruan Mei. Not just in the offensive department, like I said, they both have their own places where they excel, but this offensive aspect of her kit can be utilized by every single team out there. It does not matter if you're a hypercarry or a DOT focused team. Ruan Mei just does not have to hold back anywhere. She can fully utilize her kit in every single team. Next, let's talk about builds and alternatives. Now this is not some insane point. It majorly depends on your luck with wishing and relic rolls, but when we're discussing everything, we should touch on this as well. In terms of building these two characters, Ruan Mei has her own preference and stat goals that she wants to reach to maximize her kit's potential. You want around 160% break effect to maximize her damage buff, or you want as much energy recharge as possible to make sure you get her ultimate every 3 turns. And that's where her preferred light cone comes around. You really want either an S5 meshing cogs or an S5 memories of the past for that 3-turn ultimate. Even having an S4 will result in RNG, but on the other side of Sparkle, she's extremely easy to build. You just focus on getting crit damage and speed and use an ERR rope and she's good to go. She doesn't have any stat goals that you need to achieve to make her kit shine. With just her relics, she can get her ultimate every 3 turns easily, which allows her to use any of the light cone that's available. And this is where I definitely say Sparkle is much easier to build than Ruan Mei. That's not to say Ruan Mei is harder, as you might already have amazing break effect relics or an S5 memories of the past laying around. But not everyone has that. I myself doesn't have a single copy of Memories of the Past. And hell, I only have an S3 meshing cogs. So like I said, it mostly depends on player to player and their accounts. But Sparkle is someone that will be easier to build for any account. Finally, let's discuss the point that will make all the difference. The alternatives. Do these two characters have alternatives that can do their jobs? And this is where the answer of my initial question about who to choose becomes much clear. Ruan Mei is such a unique character that provides some of the most unique buffs this game has to offer, like weakness break efficiency or rest penetration, and no other character can do those. Maybe in the future we might get characters that can do those things, but we won't take uncertain things into account. Not just that, not having Ruan Mei, you lose out on crazy potential of your wealth, your genuine, and much more. So many characters that shine with this new break effect meta never gets to see the light anymore. This is what having a unique kit means. You are bringing all these new plays into light with your unique kit, but you're also becoming that one key that without it, all those plays are not as effective anymore. On the other side with Sparkle, she excels in two aspects: crazy offensive buffs and insane skill point generation. But these two places can be filled with other two characters, Bronya and Hanya. With Ruan Mei around, Bronya is still considered the best offensive support for hypercarry teams, and Hanya is a great SP generator. Of course, Sparkle can do both jobs alone and better, but that does not disregard the fact that there are alternatives that can be used in place of Sparkle. They might not do as good of a job as Sparkle herself, but they do exist. But in terms of Ruan Mei, there is no one that can do her job, let alone better than her. So that's why I have to give this one to Ruan Mei as well. Overall, after going through this whole discussion and my personal opinion, I have to say that Ruan Mei is a slightly better pull than Sparkle. And if you have characters like Bronya and Hanya in your account already, then I would totally recommend Ruan Mei as an overall better pick for your account. That's not to say that Sparkle is bad, hell no. This whole video I praised how much insane of a support she is. But in terms of overall value, I'd say Ruan Mei is a bit better, in my opinion. And also, I don't get how you guys have to choose between them. Like, one character is in the first half of this current patch, and the next one is probably in the second half of the next patch. So like, you have two whole patches to save for her. Trust me, I'm doing the same. And if you're adding Black Swan into this, and want her as well, then I'd say skip her and go for Sparkle, cause it's the usual trend. Damage dealers are for now, but supports are forever. And I know it's a sin to skip Black Swan, but if you want the best possible value for your account, then I'd definitely say to choose supports like Ruan Mei and Sparkle than Black Swan. But if you're someone like me and pull for whoever you like, then you don't give a shit. Like, who the fuck cares what a nobody like me says anyways? Like, who the hell am I to give you advice to who to pull? You already know who you're gonna pull for. You don't need me. Hell no. So well, that's gonna be it. I hope I explained everything, touched every point, without making anyone furious, and hopefully you guys can get both of these godly supports. So thank you very much for watching. If you found this video helpful, drop a like and subscribe for more Star Rail and Genshin content from yours truly. I tried to get every aspect of a character, but if I missed anything, feel free to add your own thoughts in the comments. If you have watched any of my previous videos, then you'd know that I always reply to every single comment, so feel free to say anything. I would really appreciate that. Once again, Happy New Year to everyone. Hope all of you are having a great day with your families, and will have a great year